Violence is bad for business. That is the first rule of capitalism, and it is the first rule of crime. We are taught to believe that the gangster is a creature of chaos, a rabid dog with a Tommy gun, spraying bullets at police cars, driven by bloodlust and ego. We watch movies like Scarface, where the mountain of cocaine and the pile of bodies grow until the inevitable collapse. We think of the Mafia as a primitive tribe. We are wrong. The truly dangerous criminal isn't the one holding the gun. It's the one holding the ledger. In 1931, the American underworld didn't just evolve, it incorporated. While the rest of the country was drowning in the Great Depression, while legitimate banks were locking their doors and stockbrokers were jumping out of windows, one industry was undergoing the most successful corporate restructuring in history. They stopped fighting over street corners and started managing market share. They stopped killing for honor and started killing for efficiency. They traded the vendetta for the voting board. This wasn't just the birth of the Commission, it was the invention of the shadow economy. The man responsible was Salvatore Lucania, better known as Lucky Luciano. He didn't want to be a boss of bosses. That was too feudal, too medieval. He wanted to be a chairman of the board. He looked at the violence of the streets and saw what any good CEO sees: wasted capital, unnecessary overhead. If everyone is shooting at each other, nobody is collecting the money. So how did a kid from the Lower East Side turn a chaotic collection of street gangs into a multinational corporation that would rival General Motors? How did he institute a corporate governance structure that outlasted the Soviet Union? It started with a simple, brutal calculation. The old management had to go. To understand the brilliance of the solution, you have to understand the stupidity of the problem. In the late 1920s, the New York underworld was trapped in the Dark Ages. It was a feudal system. Two men ruled the city like medieval warlords: Joe, the boss, Masseria, and Salvatore Maranzano. These men were known as the Mustache Petes. They were relics. They were old-world Sicilians who brought their ancient grudges across the Atlantic. To them, the Mafia wasn't a business. It was a secret society based on blood, omertà, and rigid tradition. They only trusted Sicilians. They refused to work with Jews, Irish, or anyone outside their specific villages. This isolationism was an economic disaster. Imagine if Apple refused to buy microchips from Taiwan because they weren't American. Imagine if Amazon refused to ship packages using trucks made in Germany. They would go bankrupt. The Mustache Petes were strangling their own growth potential because of racism and tradition. But the bigger problem was the Castellammarese War. From 1930 to 1931, Masseria and Maranzano turned the streets of New York into a shooting gallery. Bodies were piling up in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Harlem. For the young gangsters, Luciano, Meyer Lansky, Frank Costello, this war was a catastrophe. War is expensive. When you're at war, you have to pay soldiers overtime, you have to buy more weapons, you have to pay double the bribes to police and judges because the heat is on. Worst of all, when bodies drop, civilians get scared. Customers stop going to speakeasies. Gambling dens get raided. The volatility was destroying the P&L statement. Luciano was the lieutenant for Joe Masseria. He watched his boss make decision after decision based on ego, not economics. Masseria would order a hit just because he felt disrespected. He would start a turf war over a few city blocks that generated zero revenue, just to prove he was the capo di tutti capi, the boss of all bosses. Luciano looked at his friend Meyer Lansky, a Jewish mathematical genius, and they realized the truth. The Mustache Petes were bad CEOs. They were mismanaging the company assets. They were focusing on market dominance through force, rather than market dominance through collusion. In the legitimate world, when a CEO runs a company into the ground, the board votes him out. In the underworld, there is no vote. There is only the hostile takeover. And in 1931, Luciano initiated the most aggressive hostile takeover in corporate history. Luciano realized that as long as the old guard existed, the market would never stabilize. You cannot innovate when the dinosaurs are still roaming the earth. He brokered a deal. He betrayed his own boss, Joe Masseria. He invited Masseria to lunch at a restaurant on Coney Island called Nuova Villa Tamaro. They ate pasta, drank wine, and played cards. Then, Luciano excused himself to go to the bathroom. 4 gunmen entered. Masseria was dead before he hit the floor. The hostile takeover was halfway done. Luciano technically answered to Maranzano now. Maranzano, victorious, declared himself the boss of bosses. He held a victory banquet, laid out the new rules, and demanded tribute. He didn't get it. He was just another tyrant, another bottleneck in the supply chain. He was planning to kill Luciano next, viewing him as too ambitious. Luciano was faster. He didn't use Italian hitmen. He used Jewish gangsters from Meyer Lansky's crew. Men Maranzano wouldn't recognize as threats until they were standing in his office showing him a badge. They walked into his office on Park Avenue, posing as IRS agents. Within 6 months, Luciano had decapitated the entire executive leadership of the American Mafia. The Mustache Petes were extinct. The power vacuum was immense. This was the moment where history usually repeats itself. Usually the young conqueror takes the crown, declares himself the new king, and the cycle of war begins again. Everyone expected Luciano to declare himself the capo di tutti capi. But Luciano did something that confused everyone, something that a street thug wouldn't understand, but a Harvard MBA would immediately recognize. He abolished the position of boss of bosses. He realized that a monarchy is an unstable form of government. The king is always a target. The succession is always messy. Instead, he created a board of directors. He called it the Commission. This was purely economic game theory. In a competitive market, if firms compete on price or violence, margins go to zero. But if firms form a cartel and fix prices or territories, margins skyrocket. The Commission was composed of the heads of the 5 families of New York: Genovese, Gambino, Lucchese, Colombo, and Bonanno, plus the Chicago outfit and the Buffalo family. Here's the corporate structure Luciano implemented. It is identical to a modern multi-level marketing, MLM scheme, or a franchise model. The Commission, or the Board of Directors, was the supreme court of the underworld. They settled disputes. If Family A wanted to kill a member of Family B, they needed permission. If there was a dispute over a union or a racket, the Commission voted. Majority rules. This eliminated the transaction cost of war. The boss acted as the CEO. The head of the individual family had absolute authority within his franchise, but was answerable to the board for actions that affected the whole industry. The consigliere was the chief legal officer. This was a crucial innovation. An impartial advisor, usually a lawyer or elder statesman whose job was to think logically, not emotionally. He mediated internal disputes to prevent the boss from making rash decisions. The underboss was the COO, or vice president. He ran the day-to-day operations and collected the envelopes. The capo regime, or captains, were middle management. Each ran a crew. They were given a territory and they were responsible for its profitability. The soldiers were the employees. They had job security and a license to operate, but they had to kick up a percentage of their earnings. Finally, the associates were the contractors. Not made members, they took all the risk for a chance to enter the system. This structure solved the principal agent problem. In economics, the principal needs to ensure the agents are working in his best interest. Luciano's structure ensured this through the kick-up. Every level had to pay a percentage of their earnings to the level above them. A soldier steals a truck of cigarettes. He pays the capo. The capo pays the underboss. The underboss pays the boss. This meant the boss didn't have to micromanage. He didn't need to know how the money was made, only that the quarterly earnings were met. It decentralized the risk while centralizing the profit. It was the perfect franchise model. McDonald's sells burgers. The Mafia sold protection and vice. And Luciano was the Ray Kroc who realized the real money wasn't in the burger. It was in the real estate and the system. They had successfully transitioned from a street gang to a cartel. And like OPEC controls the price of oil, the Commission controlled the price of crime. It is a pattern of consolidation we see over and over in history. If you want to understand the hidden mechanics of power and money that the history books often leave out, make sure you are subscribed. We decode the systems others ignore, but to make this system truly work, they had to sell the world a lie. Every successful corporation needs a brand identity, a story that makes the customer buy the product. Coca-Cola sells happiness. Nike sells victory. The Mafia sold protection. But the genius of Lucky Luciano was that he understood the value of public relations. Before him, gangsters were seen as rabid animals. But Luciano lived at the Waldorf Astoria. He registered under the name Charles Ross. He wore custom-tailored suits that cost more than a judge's annual salary. He tipped bellboys with $100 bills. He created the illusion of the gentleman bandit. The media ate it up. They treated him like a celebrity CEO. He was seen as a necessary evil, a man who provided the services, gambling, liquor, loans, that the puritanical government forbade but the people demanded. But this was the front office. It was the shiny lobby of the bank. Behind the curtain, the back office was a machine of absolute terror. The Commission didn't just organize crime, they industrialized it. They set up offices for Murder, Inc., a specialized squad of hitmen who were on salary. They were the Human Resources Department, handling terminations. You didn't kill out of passion anymore. You filled out a request form. The Commission voted. If approved, the contract went to the employees who did the job without knowing why. This disconnected the CEO from the crime. Plausible deniability. The illusion was that the Mafia was a brotherhood of honor. The reality was that it was a predatory monopoly. They infiltrated labor unions. They controlled the docks, the garment district, the construction sites. If you wanted to build a skyscraper in Manhattan, you paid the mob tax. If you wanted to unload a ship, you paid the mob tax. They created an artificial inflation, a mob tax on every loaf of bread, every coat, every concrete block in New York City. The consumer paid for Luciano's silk suits. The entire city was unknowingly a subsidiary of the Commission. They thought they were untouchable. They thought the corporate veil could never be pierced. They forgot that in every market cycle, a correction is inevitable. Enter the regulator, Thomas E. Dewey. In the 1930s, Dewey was named special prosecutor. He was the Antitrust Commission. He was the SEC coming for the insider traders. Dewey realized he couldn't beat the Mafia with bullets. The police were too corrupt. They were on the payroll. He had to beat them with leverage. He looked at Luciano's corporate structure and found the structural weakness inherent in every MLM scheme. In an MLM, the people at the top make all the money and take none of the risk. The people at the bottom take all the risk and make none of the money. Who was at the bottom of Luciano's empire? The prostitutes. Luciano, in his arrogance, had organized a prostitution ring. It was a low-margin, high-volume business. He didn't think much of it. It was just another revenue stream. But the women working the streets were abused, underpaid, and terrified. Dewey didn't go after the capos. He went after the workers. He raided the brothels. He arrested the women, and he offered them a deal, immunity for testimony. This is the nightmare of every CEO, the whistleblower. In 1936, the chairman of the board was convicted not for murder, not for bootlegging, but for compulsory prostitution. The court sentenced him to 30 to 50 years in prison. The stock price of Luciano Inc. should have crashed. The CEO was in a cage. The market should have panicked. But this is where Luciano's genius was truly proven. The system didn't collapse. The commission didn't dissolve. Why? Because a good corporate structure survives the founder. Steve Jobs died, Apple continued. Henry Ford died, Ford Motors continued. Luciano went to prison, but the commission kept meeting. In fact, Luciano continued to run the company from his cell. He ordered hits. He settled disputes. The guards were just new employees on his payroll. But the ultimate reality check, the moment that proved the Mafia had become a true parallel state, came during World War II. The U.S. Navy was terrified of German spies and saboteurs on the New York waterfront. But the Navy didn't control the docks. The Mafia did. The workers wouldn't talk to naval intelligence. They practiced omerta. So, the United States government, the most powerful institution on earth, had to negotiate a merger. They went to prison. They sat down with Lucky Luciano. They made a deal. Operation Underworld. Luciano would order the dock workers to protect the ships and watch for spies. He would use his contacts in Sicily to help the Allied invasion of Italy. In exchange, he would get a commutation of his sentence. Think about the absurdity of this. The government asked the CEO of crime to secure the national borders. It was the ultimate validation. Luciano had built an organization so efficient, so pervasive, that the U.S. military had to outsource its own security to him. He was no longer just a gangster. He was a government contractor. In 1946, Lucky Luciano received his severance package. Governor Dewey, the man who put him in prison, commuted his sentence on the condition that he leave the United States and never return. The CEO was exiled. But here is where the story turns into a warning for every modern entrepreneur. It is the classic founder's trap. Luciano built a system so efficient, a board of directors so strong that eventually they didn't need him anymore. He tried to run the company from Italy. He tried to set up a satellite office in Havana, Cuba, in 1946, holding a massive summit at the Hotel Nacional. Sinatra sang, the champagne flowed, the envelopes were passed. But back in New York, the new managers, Vito Genovese, Carlo Gambino, were getting comfortable. They looked at the balance sheet. They saw that sending millions of dollars to a washed-up boss in Naples was a bad return on investment. The corporation cannibalized its founder. This happens in Silicon Valley every day. The visionary builds the company, takes it public, and then the board votes him out because he's too volatile. Luciano created a machine to eliminate chaos, and in the end, the machine decided he was the chaos. And this brings us to you. You look at the Mafia, and you see a criminal underworld. You see guys in fedoras with guns. But look closer. Look at your own life. When a pharmaceutical company raises the price of insulin by 500% because they have a monopoly, is that business, or is that a shakedown? When a tech giant buys a competitor just to shut them down and kill the competition, is that a merger, or is that a hit? When a bank gambles with your deposits, loses it all, and demands a government bailout, is that capitalism, or is that a protection racket? Luciano didn't invent crime. He just professionalized it. He proved that if you wear a suit, organize a board, and maximize shareholder value, you can get away with murder, sometimes literally. The line between a captain of industry and a godfather is thinner than a razor blade. It is often just a matter of who writes the laws. January 26, 1962. Lucky Luciano went to the airport to meet a movie producer. He was going to sell the rights to his life story. He was finally going to tell the truth. He took a sip of water. His heart stopped. He collapsed on the linoleum floor. No bullets, no dramatic shootout. Just an old man, dying alone, thousands of miles from the city he owned. He died, but his invention survived. The Commission continued to rule the American underworld for another 40 years, until the RICO Act finally dismantled it. Luciano taught the world a dark lesson. Chaos is profitable for the strong, but order is profitable for the smart. He took the gun out of the hand of the gangster and replaced it with a briefcase. He showed us that the most dangerous criminals aren't the ones hiding in the shadows. They are the ones sitting at the head of the table. The game hasn't changed. Only the players have. If you want to understand who really runs the world, don't look at the politicians. Look at the ledger. History has the answers. Subscribe.